Last weekend, I spoke about a French Apple repair company that's been in the industry for over 20 years, but they made headlines because they're now offering an upgradable drive for Apple Mac Studios and Apple M4 Mac Minis. So many thanks to everyone who watched that video, who subscribed and commented. It was something that clearly interests a lot of you, and it's something that interests me as well, because I am also trying to tackle the Apple storage problem. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. How do you tackle the Apple storage problem? Now, we might get some upgradable options in the future, but I think the general storage problem that many Apple Mac users have, regardless of which type of Mac you buy, is that you either pay Apple obscene amounts of money to increase your storage. And that doesn't matter if you've got an iPad, you've got an iPhone, you've got a Mac, you need to pay more to get more storage. The alternative is that you take the base model storage and then you need to look for alternative storage solutions. And that's what I have here on my desk. I have the base model of the M4 Mac Mini that's just came out, and everyone seems to be in agreement that this is the one to get from a value perspective. And it is, for under $600, you can get a really powerful computer. It's really impressive what it can do. 3 Thunderbolt ports at the back. We've got 2 Type-C ports, 10 gigabits per second at the front. It's quite a practical little computer, and it's very quick as well. And I've got it hooked up over here. It's actually turned on right now, which you wouldn't know because it's so silent. Now, the downside to this base model, you've got 16 gigabytes of memory, but the main downside is storage. You've got 256 gigabyte of storage, which, unless you're doing just general web browsing, isn't a lot. So that is, for me, the Apple storage problem. You either pay way over the odds for storage, or you have to find your own solution, and you end up with this type of situation, which I call like an octopus, with all these accessories and dongles, etc. coming out. So what I'd like to do is just talk about my situation. Maybe this will help some of you. Maybe it will give some of you some ideas as to how you can change the storage situation with your own Apple Mac. But before I show what's going on here, I'll quickly show what's to my left-hand side here. So to my left is the main PC, and this has been the main man for a couple of years. About this, I don't even know how long now, 4 or 5 years ago. It's got an AMD 5950X CPU. It's got an RTX 3090, some colorful memory there. As you can see, it's only 32 gigabytes of memory, but that's enough for me. So this has been a fantastic PC for me. It's got a Lee, I think that's how you pronounce it, dynamic XL case. And if you've ever built a PC before, you know that looks aren't always everything. But not only is this a great looking case, it's very easy to work with. There's just some thumb screws at the back here. Take those off, pop the top off, pop out the glass, and then you've got access to everything. Very easy to work with. The downside to this big case is, well, it's a big case. It takes up a lot of my desk. It's got a big footprint. And if I switch to like a little Mac Mini or a little Mac Studio, something like this can fit pretty much anywhere. Behind my monitor, underneath the monitor, even it actually fits underneath it. Whereas obviously this takes up a lot more room. And if I remove this and switch to a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, I now have room for another monitor, or I can put my laptop there. I've got a lot more options. I've got a lot more freedom in my desk. So yeah, that's one thing I am thinking about doing. And the reason I'm saying I'm thinking about doing is because I am a YouTuber. I've got the overhead camera here, I've got lights, and it's not just a simple transition from one computer to the other. There's a lot of things I need to move over, like OBS settings, DaVinci Resolve settings, a lot of things that I not only need to transfer over, I need to transfer them over and make sure that they're configured correctly, that there's no issue with what I'm doing. So in that regard, the Mac Mini here as a test in a way. It's a way for me to dip my feet back into the world of Apple Mac, for me to transfer things over, set things up, and then you kind of spend some time with working with any if I can speak, obstacles that pop up. And that could be little things as far as storage. It could be, DaVinci Resolve settings. It could be anything. So far, so good, but I do have a lot more testing to go. Now, coming from PC, like I said, it's not just transferring settings from a kind of software point of view, an application settings point of view. I do have to think about storage. Now, before I show you the Apple Mac again, I want to talk about storage here. This PC case has 4 hard drive bays at the back for 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch hard drives. I did have 4 hard drives in there at one point, but I now have a 2.5 inch, I think it's a 4 terabyte SanDisk drive. And then I've got 3 NVMe drives in the main PC, which the glass is reflective here, as you can see the screen, etc. So you can't really see it, but I've got 3 NVMe drives. I've got 1 terabyte for the OS and then 2 terabyte drives. So 5 terabytes across 3 M2 NVMe drives. It's not a huge amount of storage by today's standards, but when I bought those 2 terabyte drives, I've got 4 or 5 2 terabyte drives in total. Those drives were like £450 each, and they're now like £90 here in the UK. So I built this PC at the worst time ever, when crypto was crazy and all the prices were going through the roof with SSDs, which is why this build costs so much. But I have kind of limited storage needs. I just need a few 2 terabyte drives, and what I'm trying to do is reproduce all of it here. So I don't really need these drives. I'll be honest with you, these have just been added for effect to show you the octopus. When I set up the Mac Mini, I'm going to have a few things. One is, it's actually connected right now, which is why it's not really in shot, but I've got a CalDigit Thunderbolt 3 dock there. I'm tempted to upgrade to the Thunderbolt 4, but this kind of serves my needs, so I don't think there's any need to. But the idea is I'm going to connect that dock. The good thing about that dock is I can still connect other storage through it. I can daisy chain other Thunderbolt connections, etc. For example, this drive here. And I've also been sent, this is something I'll cover over the next month. This has been sent out to me, the Fusion Dock Pro 1 Plus. So I'll maybe connect this as well. This doesn't have a Thunderbolt connection, I don't believe, but what it does have is lots of HDMI ports. So this will be a great way for me to connect to monitors, to have power, to have the SD card slot. So that'll be quite useful as well. But the idea is at the back here with the 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, I'm going to have 3 cables in here at all times. One of them at least is going to go to a dock for USB type A connections, lighter things like keyboards, mice, less important things. And the other 2, well, one might be a dock or it might be just 2 to hard drives. Back on the storage issue though, what I've got here is a Ugreen USB 4 enclosure, and what I'm going to be using this drive for is the scratch disk for video editing. And I don't want to delve too deep into the world of DaVinci Resolve and video editing, but the idea of a scratch disk is that when you're working with these large files that are huge, it can be quite difficult for the computer to handle all of that, playing back the video in real time. So what you do is you put them you render them and you put them like an archive version, a cached version of it into the scratch disk, and that just gets wiped every so often. And there's a lot of evidence out there that if you've got a separate drive for the scratch disk, it's faster and it's better for performance. So that's what I've got there. It's just I'll be using this as the scratch disk. And then this one here, which is the OWC Express 1M2. I'm going to do a video about these, so stay tuned for that in the future. I've bought all of these recently. This is where all my main files go. This is the main drive, and this is duplicating what's on my Windows PC. So this will have pretty much all my YouTube stuff. It's going to be video clips. It's going to be video ideas. It's going to be, I'll show you exactly what it is. This is the equivalent on Windows. And you can see it there. I've got DaVinci Resolve, which is just settings. Elgato video clips, that was game recordings and stuff when I was testing Elgato video cards. I've got OBS settings, and I've got completed videos, video ideas. long shorts ideas. This is where I put lots of ideas, but it's also where I put lots of clips, and everything I record goes into that folder. It's not a massive folder. I mean, I think it's the directory is using like 1 terabyte. It's not a lot, but that is where all of that is going to be duplicated. Now, what I'd like to do now is jump over to the Mac Mini itself. So if I click here, you can see, well, you can see the Mac Mini. You can see the Apple Mac running in the background. And what you can maybe see here is the missing ingredient, the part of this storage situation, which I've not spoke about yet, and that is my NAS, Network Attached Storage. So I've got a Synology DS923 Plus. I've had it for a year and a half, and it's not here. It's in my garage because it's a little bit noisy. And I've got 4 18 terabyte drives in there, about 50 terabyte of usable storage after my RAID configuration, and everything goes there. Now, I'm not telling everyone out there to run out and buy a NAS, because not everyone needs it, but for me, it has been a game changer for how I work, for how I reproduce YouTube videos. I do predominantly use it for storage, but I also use it to sync files. So earlier on, for example, for the video clip of the actual Synology DS923 Plus, I took it with my phone. I go into the Synology app here and I just drag and drop the video file into the Synology Drive folder. Hey presto, it's on the NAS. I can access it on the Mac Mini. I can access it on my Windows PC, any laptop I've got. I've got freedom to access it anywhere. So it's very, very practical, very, very useful to me. And yes, there are files that I need faster connections for, but the NAS is great for archiving, and it's just transformed the way that I work. I will say I've been very happy with the Synology NAS, but I'm not telling anyone out there that that's the one that you should go for. Review all of your options. There's TerraMaster, there's QNAP, there's Asuster. There's a lot of different options out there, and find the one that suits your budget, suits your needs, etc. Synology are good, but they're very expensive for the hardware, I believe. I think they're overpriced for what they charge. But I digress. What I'd like to show you here, firstly, is my Synology control panel. I just want to briefly show this to anyone who doesn't have a NAS, who's never used a NAS. It's very easy to use. It works just like a browser, and you've got the control panel and different things. But under the package area here, you can see a lot of different apps that are available here. You can see there's lots of different backup options. I use Cloud Sync, so they've got a backup of Dropbox on my NAS. You can back up Google as well. Lots of media stuff as well. You can install Plex on here, and you can install like blogs, WordPress, and different things. I do use this in a very limited way. I've kind of tried Plex, and I've tried a few different things, and I've installed Docker to try some other things as well, but I end up just going back to not using them, and then I uninstall them. The main thing I use this for is for storage. It's where I archive files, and it's where I sync files. And the way that I sync files is this Synology Drive Share Sync. So that's that folder. That's that folder there. See the Synology, sorry, if I go to this mouse, I've got two mice here. This is the Synology Drive, and that drive, that 1 terabyte, is just synced across all my devices. And I use the Synology Drive app, and that allows me, if I bring this up and I minimize this, this is allowing me to have the exact same window, the same files on my Mac Mini. And just to clarify again, that Synology Drive, all those files, they're all here. That's where those files are currently being stored. So I've got the Synology Drive, and it's just a duplicate of what's on the other one. But if I delete anything here, it will be deleted across the board. If I rename anything, it's all synced across. Works really well. And the way that it's synced, the two-way sync, they call it two-way sync, but I guess it is a two-way sync because I'm syncing with the NAS, but the NAS will then sync with other devices like Windows, etc. So there's the local IP address of my NAS. I've actually got 3 IP addresses for the NAS. I've got 2 for 1 gigabit connections, and then the 203 connection there is actually a 10 gigabit upgrade, 10 gigabit per second upgrade, which I bought. And then you can see the local drive. So I'm syncing volumes, OWC Express 1M2 Synology drive. So I can sync external drives to my NAS through Synology drive. So this works great for me. And if you see people online, you'll see many people, and rightfully so, depending on your situation, you'll see many people saying, don't rely on a hard drive. Don't rely on having storage, putting all your files on a Samsung SSD or a USB enclosure. Don't rely on all your files being there. And they're correct. You should have backups of everything. Everything important should be backed up maybe multiple times just to be safe. But that's not really important to me. It really isn't. I've got Google Photos for photos and videos online. I've got Dropbox online. So I do utilize a lot of cloud storage. But locally, I've got all my YouTube videos on my NAS. And obviously, that's a RAID configuration, which can fail, but is fairly safe. Touch wood. But as far as these drives go, if this drive fails here, I don't lose anything. It's just temporary files, this drive here, temporary files. I'll just put in another SSD. I'll throw the other one out. I'm back to square one. This one here, there's not really a situation for me to lose files here, because what I do right now is I am recording through multiple cameras. You can see them switching around a few different cameras, etc. But all of it is through OBS, and all of it is stored to the Synology drive. Now, when it gets to the Synology drive, it's stored on the Windows drive where I'm recording just now, but it will then sync to the NAS after 5-10 minutes, depending on the size of the file, and then it will sync back to the Mac Mini. So the only situation where I would really lose out with a failure of the drive here would be if I recorded something and then the drive failed in that instance. So at most, I would only lose one clip, 2 clips at most. At most, it's such a small risk factor for my setup. It really is small for me, because as soon as anything's on this drive, it's automatically synced to my NAS. So the risk for me is low, very low. But if it is something I was worried about, I could have a second enclosure like this set up as RAID, or I could partition the drive. There's lots of things you can do to protect yourself, but I think I'm fairly covered, because anytime any files go to there, it is backed up to the NAS. Now, as I said, everyone's situation is different. Some people have an iMac, they want it all clean at the back, some back of the display. Some people have a MacBook with only 2 Thunderbolt connections, and they're forced to use docking stations and different things. Maybe they don't want to. One of the things I'm going to do here is, well, these drives will generally just be for cloning drives and transferring files. They won't be connected, but this will be the main setup for me. I'll have the Thunderbolt dock, I'll have maybe that dock connected, and I'll have these 2 enclosures connected. Now, the big thing that you see here is just, well, it's kind of a mess. And one of the reasons I think it looks bad is because whenever you buy these USB enclosures, all of them, they all come with these little tiny cables, these little like 20 centimeter USB cables, USB Type-C cables, which is why they kind of hang out the back. But you can buy USB 4 cables very cheap, Thunderbolt cables, even certified cables. They're not too expensive now. And what I'm going to do is buy longer cables, so that when I decide where this is sitting, I will then buy the right cable. That's why I've not bought them yet. I have been tempted to do it, but when I get this set up in its permanent position and I know where these sit, I will then know, right, I'll buy a 0.5 meter, a 1 meter, or even a 2 meter cable, and these will go out the way and you won't see them. They'll be hidden under the desk, or they'll be on a shelf somewhere, and it'll look a lot cleaner than it does just now. So it's going to look a lot cleaner, and I've got so many drives connected here. We're going to eject some of them. If I eject, I can show you this, what I'm doing. Just what I'm going to do is eject the Samsung 5 like that. So that can go, what's the other one called? I can't even remember what the other one's called, the Samsung 970 EVO. So that's out there as well. So this will give you a more realistic look at what my setup is going to be. It's going to be a dock, going to have a few Thunderbolt drives, but with longer USB cables or Thunderbolt 4 cables, or even Thunderbolt 5 cables, so that I've got them for the future. These will be heading out the way. This will be nice and clean like that. And I will be sitting here very smug, knowing that I've saved money, that I've not given Apple more money than I needed to. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It's a very informal, very unorganized way of showing you what I've been doing with my Mac Mini. This is kind of the storage situation that I've got. And behind the scenes, the NAS is really helping me archive everything. But it's important to note that everyone's situation is different. Some people don't need this much storage. Some people need a lot more storage. Some people need faster storage. Everyone's situation is different, but hopefully I've showed you that there are workarounds to paying the Apple Premium. You know, there is a way to tackle the Apple storage problem where you have to pay too much money. You can use USB enclosures. You can use NAS and other backup drives. You can use cloud hosting. There are ways around it. I'm not saying that having, you know, a lot of storage inside your Mac Mini or your Mac Studio isn't useful. Of course it is. But I, for one, I'm happy to live with all these cables hanging out if it saves me money, because Apple charges such a premium. You know, if you really want to go up to 2 terabyte, you're spending over $1,000 or something. It's crazy money. And I would rather put that money towards another system, another laptop, a monitor or something, because these types of accessories that you buy, if you look after them, they should last you longer than your computer does, perhaps even. You know, you could use these for several years, hopefully. And they have resale value as well if your situation changes. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. It's been a very impromptu look around my Synology drive folder, my reliable old PC over here, the Mac Mini, and obviously all of this as well. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, guys. Please let me know what you think about it. Please post a comment below. If you've not subscribed already, please do so. I'd love to have more of you on board with the channel. Please do stay tuned. I am going to be reviewing this in the future, and I'm also going to be talking more about these storage drives, which I've referred to in this video. I've did the speed test with these already. I've kind of gathered my thoughts on them already. I just have to get my finger out and actually record the video. So please stay tuned for that. I hope you're all doing well. And until next time, take care.